perspective on fighting the
Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the newsroom on NewsX World. It's been a huge day for developments around the world, whether that is from the EU-India trade deal, which was announced last night, the ongoing tensions between the United States and Iran, to upcoming diplomacy between Russia, Ukraine and the United States. We start off with the biggest news coming out of the South Asian continent, and of course we awoke to a Truth Social post from Donald Trump announcing a trade deal has finally been negotiated between the United States and India, aimed at reducing tariffs, expanding market access and de-risking supply chains. The deal is being positioned as a stepping stone towards a broader bilateral trade framework, not a full free trade agreement yet, however, but nevertheless a huge agreement that has been announced after many months of waiting in New Delhi of when Donald Trump was going to announce that trade deal. Of course, there was an additional 25% levy put onto that original 25% levy after India purchased Russian oil, and of course in efforts to de-escalate that war, Donald Trump then proceeded to impose an additional 25% tariff on India, and so the tariffs have gone from 50% down to 18% now, according to Donald Trump. However, New Delhi said according to the US president as well, New Delhi has said that it's going to stop buying Russian oil in its entirety. And so that is a huge development. We have heard that this has not been communicated to Moscow from India, however. Joining us now to give us a bit more introspection on this topic is Rema Han. She's going to tell us a little bit more about this new breaking news, the India-US trade deal.
Yes, Tom, as you rightly mentioned, of course, this is a landmark trade deal that is taking place between India and the United States, and this comes after an economic friction of almost a year, which impacted India significantly economically and as well as the diplomatic ties between the two countries. Now, I would like to take you through the major aspects of this trade deal and how is India reciprocating to its commitment. So, India is expected to move towards zero tariffs on various US agricultural goods as well as the industrial goods. India has also taken a Buy American pledge. It has reportedly committed to purchasing over $500 billion in US energy, which includes oil, LNG, as well as coal, technology and defense products over several upcoming years. And of course, this is also being seen as an energy shift, as you mentioned, that India is probably going to cancel its commitment of buying Russian oil after US mentioned that this will be the major reason why the tariffs have also been reduced. However, the same hasn't been confirmed by Kremlin or any official statements by India so far. And United States President Trump mentioned in his post that India will instead buy oil from United States or Venezuela. Now, this trade deal has several sectoral impacts. When it comes to gems, jewelry and textiles, these labor-intensive sectors are being seen as the primary beneficiaries of the lower tariffs that will restore their competitiveness against regional peers like Vietnam and Bangladesh. There's also, we'll see in India, the solar manufacturing industry will also see a positive impact. The experts are saying that this is a strategic turning point, in fact, making Indian solar cells and modules significantly more cost competitive in the US market. Pharmaceutical and engineering sectors, since India is a major manufacturer and service provider for these sectors, with thin operating margins, it's expected to see immediate relief and revival in export orders. Lastly, agriculture and dairy sector will also claim an unprecedented access to the United States, and officials maintain that certain protections for sensitive sectors like dairy and poultry remain under negotiation to protect local farmers. This is the main focus of the trade deal. However, Tom, while these details have only come in via social media posts of Donald Trump as well as the Indian Prime Minister PM Modi, without a final legal text, the agreement remains just a political headline, and uncertainties persist regarding the diplomatic ties between Russia and India, since they have shared a long years of association when it comes to the trade deal over Russian oil.
Tremor, for giving us that insight. We'll of course continue to keep our viewers informed with all the developments and the official announcements that are expected in the coming days in regards to that. We turn now to the Middle East for our next story, and tensions continue to rise in the Persian Gulf as the United States and Iran at this time approach options diplomatically. Now, there's been reports that the United States and Iran are gearing up for talks in Istanbul, in Turkey, where the two sides will discuss making a deal with three main points: the denuclearization of Iran to stop Iran from getting their hands on that nuclear weapon, enriching that uranium to nuclear levels, which of course those talks fell through last year as Israel started the 12-day war with Iran. That saw an end to those talks. And of course we also saw the United States bombing the Iranian nuclear sites, completely obliterating them. On the other hand, is in contention, which is what Donald Trump says. As well will be the negotiations of Iran stopping funding these region-based proxies. Of course, you have Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, all three of which are backed by Iran, and so the United States wants the Iranian regime to stop funding these actors it sees as terrorist organizations and threats to the state of Israel. The final thing is its ballistic missile program. Now, Iran actually has the most missiles and largest weaponry when it comes to these missiles. However, Israel, of course, has the most technologically advanced in the Middle East, which saw it penetrating Iran airspace and putting a serious dent in its military capabilities back in the summer of last year. But going into these talks, Iran's position, it is calling for fair and equitable negotiations. It wants this sanctions relief, which is so devastatingly crippled by, which of course led to these protests that we've just seen die down. And so we'll be seeing Iran vying for those removal, for those sanctions, of course, when it comes to this diplomatic engagement with the US, and guarantees against future US withdrawal. It also wants to continue its uranium enrichment limit beyond 2015 deal limits. And that is seen as a huge point of contention and something that the United States has absolutely put a red line through. So we'll see how that develops. Now, the US position remains to be that there will be no sanction relief on Iran without any verifiable rollback. It has demands on its missiles and proxies which remain red lines to the Trump administration. This regional mediation is going to play a huge part in these negotiations. Turkey, Qatar and Oman all reportedly facilitating this mediation through indirect channels, and proposed technical talks are expected to be in Istanbul. This of course comes with a huge military backdrop of all these US naval assets remaining on high alert in the Gulf. Iran-lined groups remaining active across Iraq, Syria and Yemen, and Lebanon as well, of course. Why this matters, you ask? Regional war. Donald Trump, of course, has longed for peace in the Middle East. This is something he's not going to get if the United States strikes Iran. Iran have warned of retaliatory action both against Israel and against the US bases in the region if it does indeed strike its territory. And so if the United States does strike in a time where the Iranian regime is seen as weak, we will see no doubt further violence in the Middle East. Something it's not a strange to, but something that Donald Trump wants to see de-escalating. An energy price shock is another reason, and the attacks on the shipping lanes. The Houthis, of course, will block the Strait of Hormuz, something which Iran has been, is something that is a part of leverage which Iran does indeed have. And so these scenarios is a prolonged stalemate. We're only going to know when the diplomats come to the table and we get to hear about it in the press. But of course, a hugely anticipated talk between the United States and Iran to see if they can truly de-escalate these tensions, which have lasted for years now. We're going to move on to our next story. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, head of every news bulletin around the world. We're just taking around 48 hours since the Epstein files did indeed drop, where the US Department of Justice dropped over 3 million documents and images, and also some video footage as well. But as people sieve through these, a new tranche of court unsealed documents related to Jeffrey Epstein includes emails, travel references, financial records, and contact lists. The major developments today, of course, include that the UK political fallout after documents linked to Peter Mandelson, a member of the House of Lords, former UK ambassador to the United Kingdom. He resigned from the Labour Party just 24 hours ago, remained in the House of Lords, and now he has resigned from that due to these allegations linked to him. He maintains the stance that he never knew of any of Epstein's crimes, despite this clear, close relationship that he had with Epstein. This is some important clarification that Mandelson or other names have no equality of guilt. Just because you're named in the Epstein files does not signify that you're guilty of anything. But for some officials like Mandelson, merely being associated with the individual is enough for a resignation. Okay, joining us now is Rema Hans once again. She's going to give us a few more updates that have happened today related to the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Yes, Tom, so it's a remarkable reversal for former President and the Secretary of State that they have now agreed to appear for the hearing. Just after last month, they defied the subpoenas and risked imprisonment by the US Justice State Department, and now they will be appearing in court for the hearing on the mention of both Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton in the rather controversial Epstein files. Now, the new revelations of the Clintons, in connection to Epstein, has revealed that there are several visual evidence of their involvement and their association with Epstein. The files include previously unseen photos of Bill Clinton and Epstein in social settings, including images of Clinton in a swimming pool and a hot tub. And emails reveal frequent communications between Ghislaine Maxwell, who is being scrutinized and being seen as a very close aide or associate of Epstein, and the Clinton staffers. This was between 2001 and 2004, including a request for Prince Andrew's phone number, who's of course also under fire for being mentioned, for having mentioned in the Epstein files. The files also have now, the new revelations have disclosed that the FBI had in fact previously investigated these allegations against Bill Clinton related to Epstein through, although some of them have been deemed non-credible by the United States. Now, Clintons, as previously they have denied being in close association with Epstein. Their spokespeople for Clintons emphasized they have never been accused of crimes by Epstein's survivors, and Bill Clinton severed ties with Epstein in 2005, well before the financier's criminal conduct was widely publicized. This is what the stance of the Clintons are so far, after the revelations that they have been mentioned several times in the Epstein files. They also maintain that all travel on Epstein's aircraft, documented as 17 flights in manifest logs, was just work related to the Clinton Foundation. The couple's legal team has characterized the investigation as a partisan exercise intended to protect the current administration, that is US administration, from its own Epstein-related scrutiny. Now, Clintons are of course not in a great spot because there are very important testimonies that were earlier revealed when they were first mentioned, when there was a first mention of Bill Clinton in the Epstein files. During a 2016 deposition, when asked about his relationship, when Epstein was asked about his relationship with Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein in fact invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and denied to make any comments on this. Virginia Giuffre claimed she saw Bill Clinton on Epstein's. This is another revelation, another testimony that was recorded years ago. Virginia Giuffre claimed she saw Bill Clinton on Epstein's private island, Little St. James, in 2003, and both Clintons and Ghislaine Maxwell have so far denied that he was ever there. Now, Clintons have only agreed to go in front of the committee for 4 hours of the interview, and we'll find out very soon what happens next to the Clintons in the Epstein files.
Thank you very much, Rema, for bringing us that insight on, of course, that developing situation. We're now going to turn over to Europe, and talks are getting underway in Abu Dhabi between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine to talk about the war which has plagued the east of the continent for nearly 4 years. The simultaneous reality of these talks is that Russia has launched fresh missile and drone strikes on Kyiv, Kharkiv, and energy infrastructure, with civilian casualties and power outages reported across all of the major Ukrainian cities. The Ukrainian position going into these talks is that Kyiv is willing to talk, first of all, demands the protection of civilians, the withdrawal of occupied territory of a key sticking point, and security guarantees from the United States. Now, it is known that these security guarantees are completely finished. However, we don't know what's in them, and we are still waiting for President Donald Trump to put his signature on them. But they have been put in writing with the help of the US envoys Kushner and Witkoff. So we'll keep you updated on that. The Russian position is that it claims strikes target military infrastructure and not the civilian infrastructure, breaking this Western narrative, what it calls, and it insists that Ukraine must accept new territorial realities. Now, the Donbass region is the center of this, a region which Russia now controls 80% of. It wants 100% in these negotiations. If it doesn't get it, it'll keep fighting. The Western response is that NATO has condemned these strikes, the ongoing warfare, of course, and has warned that Moscow is trying to negotiate from a position of force. The humanitarian situation, of course, continues in Kiev as that energy infrastructure continues to be hit and winter creeps further and further over Ukraine. What these talks are likely to cover first are the prisoner exchanges, these local ceasefires, which we've seen temporarily over certain regions of Ukraine. Humanitarian corridors are expected to be set up if these talks go in the right way. But what talks are unlikely to resolve is, of course, territory, which continues to be the sticking point. It will continue to be the sticking point unless Ukraine concedes, something which will put the international order and international law into disarray. But it does want this long-term security architecture also. So peace talks are being planned, but the battlefield remains active, underscoring how fragile and limited any initial agreement would indeed be. And so that's all that we have time for today on the newsroom, but we'll keep you updated on those talks in Abu Dhabi, the situation across the Middle East, and of course overnight in the United States. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow here on NewsX World.